All right, everybody, welcome to the third GJ podcast that we've ever done. So we have our heavy hitter lineup today. The very first podcast we did last year was about brotherhood and about Gentleman's Journal a little bit and about some of our journeys. The second one was on health, which was phenomenal. And today we are talking business. And when we started saying, well, what kind of business topic do we want? We said, let's go ahead and grab three of our guys with the bigger businesses in Gentleman's Journal, and let's learn from them. Let's talk about scaling. Let's talk about decisions. Let's talk about growth and see what kind of fun we can have today. So I'm really fired up today because first of all, like I said, we have a heavy hitter lineup, and in GJ, we make a lot of relationships and get to know people, but you don't always get to ask, have we ever spent an hour together, Emilio, where I just gotten to ask about how you got into business? Not really.
No.
And so I'm excited to learn from you guys today and hear, your background, your story, the tough decisions, some of your failures, because we all know that's part of business, and see what we can do today. Before we get started, though, I want to thank everybody in the audience. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. It's about 10 to 12 guys here to support the podcast and learn. And we have all of our founders in the room, which is very cool. Thank you guys for being here. And almost the entire board in the room. And then we have a lot of other guys who are just true and true GJ brothers, probably here for themselves to learn, but also to support the podcast. So Brett Trembly, your host. And what we're going to do is I didn't prep our guests today for the questions. I didn't really tell them what we're going to do because I want the answers to be candid. We've got 2 hours, so don't feel like you need to rush through anything. But I promise you, because the first 2 times we've done this, we've got to the end of the second hour, like, wow, there's so much more we could talk about. So I also don't have a script, as you'll see, because we're going to keep it organic today and ask questions. We will take a break here in the middle to switch the battery for the camera. And for the audience, what we'll do at the end, hopefully we have time, is quick fire questions. If you guys have anything you want to ask and you're like, man, I wish Brett would ask that question, jot it down, and then right at the end, maybe we'll do some rapid fire if you guys want. So let's go and get started. And what I want to do is start with you, Jonathan. This is Jonathan Rodriguez. You've seen his trucks all over town, ASP. But how tell us about your business, but not the 30-second V&I commercial, all right? I want to know, when did you decide to start the business? What your background was? And what happened? What made you say, you know what? I need to open this thing. There's a hole in the market, or maybe it's a passion of yours. Maybe it's a family business. I don't know. Tell the audience.
Well, thank you, Brett. I appreciate it. And appreciate being here as well with you guys today. I think it just goes all the way back to being a kid in elementary school, middle school. Just got excited to be able to sell kids airheads and blow pops and stuff in school. That led to high school, selling DVDs and things of that nature. And before you know it, I was 19 years old, got an opportunity to be a salesman for a hurricane shutter company. And I kind of saw that there was a passion there for me to meet new people, see how I can help people. And then from there, pretty much stood there for about 2 years. Was doing great for a 19, 20-year-old. And before you know it, I had an opportunity to start a partnership with someone to basically fabricate hurricane shutters. But, it didn't go according to plan. And it probably was the best thing that could have happened to me, because that pushed me to go ahead and, study my butt off to get my general contractor's license so that I could start a business that wasn't only hurricane shutters, but I saw a future in impact windows. To me, hurricane shutters wasn't the final stop for us. And it was probably the best decision I could have made. And that's basically how I started.
All right, so I want to unpack some of that. Why was the original partnership you mentioned? Did you start a business and then it basically imploded? And did you have a partner? Tell us about that.
So he was the owner of the hurricane shutter company, and he offered. He saw something in me, honestly, since the day he met me, and honestly, may rest in peace. He's no longer here, but he saw a possibility of starting a business with me and my family. So we basically invested, I had my mom refinance her house so we could invest into the business. And it didn't take a month for me to figure out that this wasn't going in the right direction. And from there, as soon as I kind of felt that this is not what we expected, I hit the books hard. I mean, I was grinding, like wake up in the morning, study till nighttime. Took me like 4 or 5 months of nonstop studying for the general contractor's license. And honestly, with God's help, I mean, I'm still shocked that I was able to pass it the first time around.
So how old are you? You mentioned 19 when you started making some decent money. You were in sales with a cartoon shutter company, but how old were you when you started ASP?
21. It was in 2006.
Okay.
It was 2006. People were like, "Oh my goodness, you opened up during a bad economy," and I'm just like, "Man, I was someone I didn't even know what an economy was."
Right.
So to me, I'm like, I was just starting a business because of the passion, because of the love. Honestly, I loved meeting new people, and I saw that that's where I was able to do something special.
Tell us about what does ASP stand for? What do you guys do?
So it's American Storm Protection. We rebranded to ASP Windows right away, so we could just narrow down on what we specialized in. And from here to now, 2019, we rebranded to ASP Super Home because now we specialize in just about anything that has to do with remodeling.
Okay, so impact windows, roofs, complete remodels?
Complete remodels, kitchens, baths, solar, and we're even fabricating metal roofs now as well. So we're fabricating metal roofs to roofers as well. So we're partnering up with a lot of roofers in South Florida now.
So there's a lot there, right? You started just you had help from your mom. I didn't know that, which is really impressive that she was willing to refi her home to help you out. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But fast forward, how big is ASP now? And whatever you're comfortable sharing, by the way, you can talk about numbers, the amount of employees, the amount of trucks. Just give us an idea.
Right now we're probably about 70 to 80 employees, including all of our installers. We started off, it was just me, my mom, my father, my wife. We were doing a little bit of everything. So from then to now, we went through hardships as well, some very tough times. But yeah, luckily we're at a position where we've been blessed to have so many employees. And honestly, it's not just a matter of the families we get to protect and beautify their homes, but also the families that are involved in the business. Like for me, it's like a big responsibility for me to do well for them because at the end, they're relying on us to be able to take care of their families.
Yeah, that's as the business owners in the room know, right? It's not just you and your family, but other people are relying on you. But to go in 20 years from you, your mom, your dad, and your wife, because you said 06 and it's 2026, right?
Correct.
So that's a heck of a journey. What was the decision, or sorry, what was the point in time where you said, we started out, but like I need to invest in this thing to grow it? Or was there ever a time where you thought, well, just going to be me in a small business and I'm okay making, this amount of money? Or did you just never think about it and you just did what the business needed as you went along?
Yeah, for us, for our family, it wasn't about investing from anywhere. Like we didn't come from a wealthy background and a lot of money, but we did put everything that we had in it to the point where in 2010-ish, business wasn't going how we expected. So we kind of had to make a tough decision whether we close up the doors or we sacrifice our mortgages and our homes. So, I had that big, tough conversation with my mother where she just basically asked me like, Jonathan, what are we going to do? And I'm like, look, we can stick this out and just stop paying the mortgages and put the business first. And then her question was like, well, where are we going to live? Under a bridge? And I'm like, well, Mom, if we live under a bridge, what's important is that we're living under a bridge together. So for me, it wasn't so much about the business. It was about having the support and the love between our family. And, part of this podcast, I think for me, at least the message is that we all go through struggles. We all go through hard times. And the biggest thing I tell you is don't lose faith and just try to do things alongside with the people you love.
Absolutely. That's good. But how many trucks do you have? Because I get a Palmetto Bay magazine and you're on the cover, right? People are always posting pictures. Like I saw one of your trucks. You guys seem to be in a lot of places at once, which is very impressive. Like, how do you do it? What's your footprint?
So a funny story is, it brings me back a little quick memory where I was seeing billboards, which we do some billboards now, but at one point in time, I'm seeing all these billboards across, everywhere I'm driving, and I see a window company. And I told one of my guys, I'm like, man, you know how much one of these billboards costs? And I'm like, what would be better? If we use that money to buy some trailers, include, those box trailers, and have all of our installers just drive around town with all the windows and doors protected, and the box trailers will be wrapped. So that crazy investment of something that's going to go away in a few months. I mean, we still have trailers from back then that was probably like 10 years ago. So I would say we probably have about 40, 50 branded vehicles out on the road.
Yeah, I love that, because when you don't have resources, you have to be creative, right? One of the challenges, I think, and I don't know if anyone here came from a background where they had a lot of money to throw in a business, is you don't have it, so you got to figure it out. We're going to come back to that, J-Rod, and I'm going to ask you some more questions along that. But thank you for the intro, and again, thanks for being here.
You got it.
All right, Carlos, Mr. Plana, what's up, man?
Sir. How you doing?
Known you for about 10 years.
Yes.
We had some one-to-ones together for a year, so I know a lot about your companies, but that was about 5 years ago. So, Gables Insurance Recovery, and now you have a menu of businesses, because you keep expanding. So let's go to the beginning though. Tell us about your background and how you started business, and then tell us about the journey.
Well, I started working in insurance when I was like 19, 20 years old. I worked in every aspect of insurance. I did reinsurance, surplus lines. I had my insurance license, surplus lines license, and I did that for several years. And then after that, I went into claims. I handled claims for probably like 12 years from that point. And then it got to a point where me and my business partner, Robert Pellier, we went ahead and we saw that there was an opportunity in the law that allowed us to open up a business where we went ahead and medical providers, when you go to see a medical provider, they do assignment of benefits. So what we did was we had the assignment of benefits transferred to my company. And that allowed us to go after the insurance companies when they underpaid or didn't pay any claims. So we opened up a business doing that. So that.
And when was that, Carlos? How old were you?
I was about 40, and it was 2006. And we went ahead and we started the business, and we started going after insurance companies when they underpaid medical claims, and mostly PIP. We started growing the business, and eventually we got to the point where at one point we had 5 different attorneys that worked on this, because I owned those claims, so we could file lawsuits on our own behalf, on behalf of Gables Insurance Recovery. So we had 5 attorneys, we had paralegals, and we filed all these lawsuits. I was the one who was the corporate representative, and I was the one who testified in court. When I worked for insurance companies, I used to testify for the insurance companies explaining why they didn't pay or underpay claims. So I had that experience testifying in court, depositions, and things like that. So I transferred over to insurance companies to make sure that they paid what they were supposed to pay. And that's how the business happened. They challenged us in the beginning, the insurance companies, and we went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, and we prevailed. Yeah.
What was the challenge though? They're saying that you can't, the assignment to you and your company was invalid, essentially,
right? You could reassign an assignment of benefits. And we thought that the case law was in our favor, so we challenged it and we won in the Supreme Court.
But if you lose there, your business is essentially gone.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's not a small.
No, it was
matter.
A big risk.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it was a new concept that no one had done. So it took me, we started in March of 2006. I didn't get my first client for like 6 months. And like yourself, we put in our own money. I stopped working for insurance companies. And then when you stop working for insurance companies and you start suing them, it's hard to go back. So we went ahead and did that. And we got our first client. And we were the first case that we had. They challenged us all the way to the Supreme Court. We prevailed. It took a couple of years to go all the way to the Supreme Court, but we kept on with those claims. So eventually we prevailed, and then we expanded the business.
Let me just ask you real quick. If I have an insurance claim on my home, let's say it's a $50,000 claim.
Right.
And I accept 20, because that's what insurance companies do, right? Their business is
lowball.
Right?
Yeah.
They're trying to pay out as low as possible and then keep as much possible, right? That's their margin. But don't I waive the rest of what I think I'm owed, essentially? Like, how do I get to assign the remainder to you? Aren't I signing a release?
Well, in medical claims, they just pay unless you sign. If they sign a release saying that's it, then there's nothing I can do. But they would just pay that amount
without getting
a
waiver, essentially. Yeah. Right. Wow. Okay.
So then they transferred the rights to my company, and I went ahead and filed lawsuits against them. I actually had to send them a letter saying, look, I now own the rights to these proceeds, these insurance claims, and I'm giving you opportunity to pay. They wouldn't, and then I would go ahead and file a lawsuit against them and go all the way to through the trial. A lot of times we had to go to trial, so I was the one who testified, and I had my own attorneys and my business partner, Robert Pellier, who we went ahead and prevailed in those lawsuits as well.
Now, were you the first in Florida or the entire United States to come up with this business?
I wasn't the first, but I was the one who found the case law that one prevailed up in northern Florida.
Okay, so, but you're starting a new business that nobody really understands, right?
Right.
So the learning curve and the marketing that you said it took you 6 months to get your first claim, because I'm sure you're meeting people explaining this concept and they're like,
you can't do that. Yeah. And then the insurance companies would tell them, you can't do that. What he's doing is wrong.
Right.
So it made it even harder for me to get more clients.
Yeah. So how did you start spreading the word and start convincing people that this is a legitimate business that you can move forward with?
When I start prevailing and giving them money.
Yeah, so that's a slow start then.
It was a slow start.
Several years to get off the ground.
But after that, it progressed, and then more people saw that I was successful at it, and I started getting more and more clients through no advertisements, just word of mouth.
Okay, so about, tell us about the new businesses you have, because this is not the only business you have right now.
Well, now, because of the change in the law, and doesn't allow me to go ahead and reassign those assignment of benefits, I have, because I was doing mostly in the medical claim field, in 2017, I opened up a medical billing company. So I have a medical billing company all throughout the United States. I have clients in Louisiana, Wisconsin, Connecticut. So I go ahead and I bill for them, make sure that they pay, the insurance company paid what they're supposed to pay. And I have a medical billing company. I also got my real estate broker's license. I got salesman, and then I got a broker's license. And I was able we purchased a national franchise, which was Next Home. So we own a franchise here in Coral Gables, and we also own one in Orlando. And it's a big franchise. They have like 6,000 agents throughout the United States. But this week, it was very favorable for us because the biggest real estate company in the world, EXP, just bought Next Home. So that expands with a lot more capital, a lot more, it expands our business, and it allows me to have more capital than Next Home franchise. And I also own, with all these companies I own with Robert Pellier, is that we have a title company. That's how I started. So, and now I also, last year, got my insurance license. So now I'm an insurance agent. And now what we do is we go ahead and we help clients. I just sold 2 weeks ago. We sold the property to someone. We did the closing, and I sold them the insurance. So it's people do business with people that they know and trust. So they have the confidence in me so that I can do the transaction, the whole transaction with them. And they only have to deal with one person and maybe the mortgage person. So that's how I put everything together.
And about how big is your total operation? You can throw out numbers, you can throw out amount of employees.
At one time,
how do you
DIR, it was pretty substantial. I had 20 something employees. Now I am starting smaller. My medical billing company is just a few different billers. My whole company is family based. So my wife works with me. My daughter works with me as well. We all work together, and each one works in different aspects and in the different fields that we have in the different companies. So, and then I have a few other employees that we work together. And the thing is, now with all the technology and everything else, you can do things with less people. So I have a few people, not like it was before, 20 something employees. I have 5 or 6 employees now that work all together, and we were able to do all this that way.
And now you also sell insurance, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
I do.
if I buy insurance from you, can I also assign my benefits if you don't pay me?
No.
No, because the law changed though. Jokes
The law,
aside, right?
the law changed it and made it very difficult for you to do that. It's a double-edged sword because the law changed and allowed more insurance companies to come down here, which allows more competition. So that means that the insurance premiums are going down. But it also makes it more difficult for you to go ahead and file a lawsuit against an insurance company because of the assignment of benefits, and also because of the fact that it makes it difficult for suing insurance companies because of the attorney fee provision that there was. Before, there used to be attorney fee provision that if the insurance company didn't pay, they had to pay the whatever they didn't pay plus the legal fees to the whoever is filing a lawsuit. That changed now, so it makes it harder for individuals to file lawsuits against insurance companies because, first of all, you have that you take a percentage of whatever the attorneys will take a percentage of whatever is outstanding. There's no attorney fee provision, but if the insured loses, the insurance company you have to pay the insurance company their legal fees.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't make it worth it.
It used to not be reciprocal. Now it is.
Now it
It's
is.
a lot more risk on
Exactly.
the individual bringing the lawsuit. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to come back to you. There's a theme that I'm going to ask you guys both about that I'm excited about. But first, we're going to go over to the Don, as we call him. Don Emilio. You have a little bit different story, Emilio, because you sold the business. So you've had an exit. It was called Incurie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a telecom company. And I remember when you were just getting started, but I want to hear about it. Tell us when and why did you start the business?
So I transitioned from believe it or not, from the apparel business years ago. Not a whole lot of people know that.
Did you guys know that?
Yeah,
I
half
don't
the
know.
guys here know
Some of the
that.
guys, the apparel business.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
you were selling men's underwear?
No, I was actually selling taxi sportswear, which was in Dadeland and all that. So,
Okay.
so that was more like a fun stuff. But anyway, the point is, that whole fashion thing, you grow and then you die because that's the way trends work. So I found myself with, okay, what am I going to do now? So I got into telecommunications really as a broker of services, if you will. And I started it, actually, you know what? In between there, I worked for about 12 years in corporate America in that industry. So I learned a lot of stuff like that.
In telecom?
In
or-
telecom,
Okay.
in telecom, yeah. A company called XO Communication back in the day. And I would see these checks going out to these agents, which were not employees, playing golf in the middle of the day. And I'm like, oh, something doesn't add up here. So whatever. So every year I would tell my wife, you know what? This year I want to quit and I'm going to start my own agency. It's called an agency, right? Like an insurance agency.
Sure.
Every year. And I never had the things to like go out and actually do it, right? And the best thing that ever happened to me is I got riffed and I got laid off with a few other people. And I'm sitting here, I'm 49 years old. I'm like, I remember going home on a Monday afternoon. I get home, my wife is, what are you doing here? I said, I just got my ass whipped. And so what are we going to do now? Well, I don't know. And she starts crying. My daughter was there crying. I'm like, stop crying. This is going to be good. This is going to be fine. Okay. So listen, when it's a recurring business, it takes time, just like Carlos's business, it takes time to like get to above what you would call the waterline, right? Okay, I'm breathing.
Let
no
me
longer
let me
drowning.
interject here. By recurring, you mean a recurring revenue business.
So as an example, right?
Yeah,
In a very
go ahead.
simplistic
Yeah.
way, right? So get staffed up, has a need, we come in, we design it, we introduce them to the vendors. Every month, as they use the services and they pay those providers pay us a residual on the book of business.
Right.
It's called a book of business. So that's kind of the model of it. But anyway, so it took a while, but after a while, then I hired somebody. We never grew past 3 people. And to the point of exiting, I never never build a business with the intent to sell it. It was never the intent, right? Had that been the intent, I probably would have done differently. So having worked for corporate and having brought the business to a level where I could breathe and I was supporting my family and then making some extra money, I chose to go what's called a lifestyle business, which means it was never my dream to have an office in every major city in the United States. That was never the intent. And I never behaved or managed the business in that. The way I manage the business is, I got 10 grand left over this month. Where am I going to go traveling this year, in the next few months? It was a lifestyle business. There's pros and cons. I had a lot of fun doing it. But when you go sell the business, you didn't scale because you didn't really want to reinvest in the business. So you didn't scale, right? So, looking back, when you start a business and once you get your head over water, you should kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, what kind of business do I want to build? Because what you do in a business that's lifestyle is different than when you do in a business that you're scaling where you're, make $10. Where am I going to invest this money within the business to grow it? So I wasn't looking for it. Someone knocked on the industry, every industry has, the groupies and the people who know you and all that. And through those contacts, there was a phone call and an introduction and it happened. So
how long did you run the business before you sold?
It was 14 years.
Okay.
13, 14 years. 13, 14 years. And quite honestly, the last 5 or 6 years, I had a gentleman named Rafael. A lot of you guys know Rafa. Rafa was doing 90% of the stuff. I was there. I was doing, a lot of the PR stuff, but the grinding stuff, if you had an issue and you needed somebody to go out, it was Rafa who went and, wiggled the cables in the back of your phone to make sure the static went away. But I was a little bit more of the, meeting new, relationships, stuff like that. But yeah, 14 years. And
at your peak, you had 3 employees.
Believe it or not, 3 employees.
Wow.
It was a business it's a kind of business that if you do it right going in, yes, you will get a phone call, you will get somebody who needs you, but they kind of plug and play a little bit. Insurance, you have to renew every year, right, Carlos? Ours were either 3 or 5 years. So we were always available for customers, but we didn't have to touch the customer forcefully every 12 months. That would have been difficult because I think we had at scale, somewhere like 350, 400 customers in the base and you could never touch those, so you have your 80-20. But, yeah.
All right, Emilio, I paused you in the middle of your answer just to give me some more about the you said recurring business, right? Recurring revenue, you can also call it a subscription type business.
Yes.
And you can either have purely subscription, you can have just live or die by your next sale. And then sometimes you have annual renewals. And so there's a little bit of a hybrid. There's a good book called The Subscription Economy that I read probably like 8 or 9 years ago at this point, but it talks about, we used to pay 99 cents for a song on iTunes, right? I think we're probably almost all old enough to remember that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they said, no, we want you to pay us $10 a month, $9.99 for unlimited songs, right? So that just happened and people did it. But I started studying the subscription economy. Like, why is everything going to subscription? And there's a few reasons. First of all, for a smaller business, what you talked about is if your expenses are, let's just say $10,000, right? You've got rent, you've got software, you've got, just your base expenses. Okay. And if you have a monthly recurring revenue business, then that means you need enough sales. Let's say it's $1,000 per month. Once you get to 10 clients that are paying you $1,000 a month, you've covered your expenses. And now everything on top is just gravy. So if you're going to grow and you're going to take people on, you can say, okay, well, I know I only need X amount of more clients to cover my next expense. Correct. And I have 2 businesses, right? One of them is a monthly recurring revenue business. So every month we start where we ended last month. We already know what's going to hit the account. And that is an unbelievably freeing, incredible experience because my other business, my first business is monthly. Essentially at the first of the month, you start at 0. So if you're not doing sales and you're not doing work, then you're only as good as your last month. And you have good months and bad months. And what a subscription or recurring revenue model does for you is it increases your multiplier when you go to exit, which is one of the big advantages. But even if you're not, even if you're a lifestyle business, you don't plan to sell, you're gonna sleep better at night, in my opinion. Again, because I have experience in both, because you already know what you've done the month before, right? And you're just building every month. So one month you get to 5, and the next month to 10, the next to 15. And you're not starting over, right?
It's funny you say that, because my wife runs the books in our house. So my wife would say, how much should I count on this month? I don't know. The same as last month plus a little bit more.
Yeah.
And got to a point where she wouldn't ask me, because it was so consistent, so predictable. It's like painting and then repainting, and you just keep painting on top of the paint. And it gets to a point where, you have this thick thing of paint where the money just comes in. And to your multiple comment, I have a friend of mine who tried to sell his business, actually went through the entire process, but when they dug in and the purchaser was doing the due diligence, it never materialized because the business had no stability. There was no consistency. Yeah, he might have done 10 million a month, about 10 million a year, but one month he would do 500,000, and the next month 4 million, and then he dropped down to 250. So the investors, the private equity, decided this was just not something they can count on.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, to me, and I've said this to some of the folks here in the room, I didn't necessarily love the telecommunications business. It's like if, Jonathan says, I really never loved this, the window business. I never loved the telecom business. I'm not a tinkerer. When something breaks in my house, I call somebody to come and fix it. So that's completely against what you would consider to be in our industry. But I freaking love that model.
The business model.
Like, forget about it. Like, I'll do anything. Like, now, I think to myself, what am I going to do next? Do I want to do anything next? And when I do, there's one criteria. Is it a subscription model business? Because it is not interested. Not even, I don't want to listen to it. It's just a beautiful business. And, if you own a business, not every business could swivel to that model. But remember, Apple started selling iPhones. And every 3 years you bought, or 2 years, you would get a new phone. You could say, oh, there was a certain, but that was not where Apple's making is at 80% of their margins and profit are on the ecosystem, the iTunes, the app stores. Because these things, I don't know, I pay $39.90 to Apple every month. It should have been ludicrous when I was paying 99 cents for a movie, for a song. And now I'm just paying every month. And you know what? I don't even know when I pay it, right?
Yeah.
But they're getting that money times 10 million, 100 million, whatever, billions of people. So, yeah. So the idea is look within your business. Is there a part of your business that could be, subscriptionized, if you will?
Can you add
some
sort of, monthly, quarterly check-in that you can charge for that's on repeat? Because there are places in a business where that may not be apparent, but if you look hard enough, you can find ways to add that sort of consistent revenue.
Very possible.
Yeah,
and that's a game changer.
If we have time, let's come back to that. But you know what? The best example, though, I think that I like to talk about is Costco. Costco, you go in and you buy a bunch of whatever groceries. They sell all kinds of stuff, right? So I think like 90% of their revenue is what you buy from them, but like 90% of their profit is from the membership that they charge just to have the privilege to go in to the stores, because the membership is just.
But the interesting thing is that it's a what they call what's it called, a wheel? What they call
a flywheel?
It's like a flywheel. Because what happened? I went to Costco, interesting enough, 2 days ago. The guy says to me, you got to get about $120 back because you have that executive membership. So you're right. They're making most of their money on the membership. Probably 90% of their margin is on the profit. But yet, gets to a point where you spend enough money in their store that they'll send you back.
Yeah, but their margins are razor thin, though, on what they sell. And that's the appeal to be a member, because you want the best price.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that a little bit, Emilio, but thank you for the story. and for the background. And I love the attitude, by the way. Like, stop crying. We're going to figure it out. Because I know myself, I've been through tough times and I didn't have that attitude. So I really love meeting people when they do. All right, we're going to circle back around to you, Jonathan. And from what I know about your business, it's not a recurring revenue business, right? You get a project, you complete the project, and then it's done. A lot of your value is probably in the brand and the relationships, of course. But even if you have a good relationship with homeowners, it's not like they need you every week, every month, etc. So, you're building something based on reputation. And again, I mentioned your truck center, and you guys have a great reputation. I want to dovetail sort of that background into something you said, which is you do windows, you do roofs, you're partnering with other roofing companies through manufacturing, you're doing home renovations. Something I heard a long time ago that has stuck with me ever since is a confused mind does nothing. And I have the same question for you and Carlos, because if we expand our businesses too fast or too broad, then it can get confusing. Like, well, I don't know. What do? They do too many things. So tell us about your sales team. Do you have different funnels, different staff for each different thing? Or, do people just kind of understand what you do? And maybe most of your business comes from referrals. And so it's kind of obvious, but to the person sitting in the audience or listening, like how do you distinguish what's your main thing and what are you guys known for?
For sure. Great question. And here I'm hearing Emilio speaking and I'm getting jealous because I'm like, man, that sounds phenomenal.
It sounds phenomenal.
And I know when you're saying you have experienced both and you have both. So yeah, that's a dream of ours one day, is to have some type of subscription business where maybe we go once a year to, inspect your windows, lubricate them. We do some maintenance. But that's in the vision board right now but as far as that challenge, right, is like we start at zero every month, just like you say. And it's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
As far as the branding goes, it's been a huge pivot for us because, we did a great job for your windows. And then now, sometimes customers and homeowners have a hard time finding somebody they can trust. So, majority of our business that's been the additional services has come from customers that have, trusted us and blessed us with the business in the past. And as far as like keeping it like separate, for sure, different departments. I have sales guys that specialize in windows. I have guys that specialize in roofs, and we've been able to get them to cross train where now a lot of the guys are starting to feel comfortable selling everything. And when it comes to departments, like I don't have my window guys installing roofs, right? And same thing, vice versa with the roofs, and as well as with customer service. So I don't have a team that's watching the window, what's going on with our projects with windows and what's going on with roof, like all these things. It's all different departments and different people are responsible. So it's like, I think, Emilio, as you mentioned, the flywheel. It's kind of like the flywheel concept that we got going on. And that's why we decided to rebrand as ASP Super Home. It's a home improvement company all the way around.
So when you roll out a new product line, if you like, I know you're not selling products as a service, right? So like you're now going to do home renovations. Do you go back to the hundreds of customers you've had since 2006? And do you have an email list? Do you start placing phone calls? Like what is your strategy behind expanding and letting people know you're getting into a new area?
So definitely, we do email campaigns, but that probably has like an open rate of 15-20%. So we just do direct mail. We try to touch our customers once every 6 months, so that way we stay top of mind. And one thing that really separates us is, my guys, they're not trained to just sell the job and you never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. For us, the difference that separates us from the rest, our motto is that our sales rep is actually your project manager. So they're there with you from beginning to end, and they're actually the last person that you see because, they get scheduled to do basically a final walkthrough is what we like to call it, where they get to shake hands with the customer, hug it out, and then get into our bread and butter, which is referrals. At the end, marketing for us, when it comes to putting money behind marketing, if we break even, fantastic. But it's about, providing an exceptional service to the customer where that's a memorable experience that, it's like I tell the guys, when you sell the job, you just planted the seed. But after that, it's about watering that. If you never talk to that customer again, you just planted a seed and you didn't even let it grow.
Yeah.
So that's how we stay afloat. And luckily, blessed to say we have 70% of our business is referrals.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Best type of business too. Best type of client. Now, your project manager is also your salesperson.
Correct.
So how many project manager salespeople do you have?
12 in total.
Okay. And are they, you can say, man, that sounds great. Subscription business. Right? I think every business owner can see someone else doing something and say, that sounds wonderful. Right.
Definitely.
There are the types of businesses, for example, a realty brokerage, they're not paying their realtors unless the realtors sell a house. Right.
Correct.
And so, there's other expenses, of course, involved and there's staff if they get bigger, but that's intriguing to me. So do you guys pay purely on commission? Are you base plus commission? How are you incentivizing the behavior for what you just said, which is you're planting the seed, but you have to capitalize on that?
It's strictly commission. And I just did an exercise with the guys, and I actually showed them that we separated the buckets between what's a marketing lead and what's a referral lead, and what's the closing ratio when you go see a referral versus a marketing. So I got some guys that are on the weaker side, that are like at 10, 12% on marketing leads, which tells me we got to fix something there. But when I just show them that your closing ratio on a referral is 50%, I'm telling them like, you gotta see 20 people in the marketing bucket versus 4 or 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, to tell me that you don't want to circle back and shake hands with the customer at the end to water the plant, to water the seed, it's just not, doesn't, and I don't even have to tell them. I'm like, does that make sense? And they're like, now that I look at it and I see it that way, Jonathan, that makes total sense. So we're at a point right now where I've come to realize what we're strong at. And instead of trying to, beat this thing through marketing, let's capitalize on what we're good at. And I'm teaching my guys, take ownership. You're selling the company, but more than anything, man, you're selling yourself. Right. And that's how I grew ASP, because I had to do that. I know what that is, to sell a job and have to be that guy all the way to the end.
Let me just throw something out. You may not have what you would call a genuine recurring business, but you could create a recurring-ish model by going back and, 30 days after an install, 6 months, like creating touch points, and you can almost create your own,
subscription.
It just isn't contractually, but it's strategically you can create.
Definitely. That's exactly what we're working on and focusing on at the moment.
And when you talk about that's what we're working on, do you have a business coach? I may or may not. No, I'm serious about this, because like you have a lot of things figured out, but the journey from you starting a business to having 12 guys who are project managers, also, there's a lot of decisions to be made to get there, because somebody could have talked you into, hey, pay them, $100,000 plus commission, or like there's so many micro and then macro decisions to get to where you are today. So talk about, like, did you have a wrong model at first, or did you just strike gold from when you wanted to start growing?
So I think it was a reality check moment when we actually received that eviction notice. And it's where I realized I have to be better. Like, I have to learn, I have to figure out how to make this thing work for myself or my family. And as soon as I started realizing that I needed to open up books and learn about leadership, learn about sales, learn about psychology, that's when things started really turning around, when I decided to focus on myself, because I'm like, if I'm going to lead this thing, I have to lead by example. So as far as mentors and coaches, Gentleman's Journal, I learned from a lot of you guys, so I appreciate all of you guys. I try to pick things that I can learn from every individual, every conversation. I'm also part of a group called Vistage, and there's a leader in that group her name is Caro, and then her husband, Carlos Plana, which some of you guys might know. I look up to them as well, and, they mentor me with different things. And yeah, it's a bunch of people that I might not have met in person, like John Maxwell. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but to me, my leadership style is all based off of John Maxwell.
Yeah, he has some amazing books on leadership. And thank you for that answer. The reason I'm asking is because I truly believe that personal growth precedes professional growth, right? And to hire 1, 2, or 12 project managers, sales guys, even if you give them a manual, even if you give them a map, say, here's what I want you to do, go sell. You got to lead those people, and you have to give them the type of data that you just said. I sat down and I showed them, marketing leads, referral leads. but that comes from you working on yourself first and growing as a business owner. And I know I see pictures of you on Facebook, like working out at 5 a.m. So, I like telling my personal story about a turning point I had where I started the Miracle Morning. And I think that like kicked off a lot of my professional growth, but that's my story. What about yours?
I'm on the same boat, man. When I read Miracle Morning, I saw everything I needed to do right there, right? Exercise, journal, meditate, prayer, read. So that was like an aha moment for me. Actually, I was listening to the book while I was like rushing to get out of the house, and I'm listening to this guy speak, and the guy's like, most of the world just gets up in the morning, not even thinking, just gets up, brushes their teeth, get dressed, whatever they got to do, and they're running out of the house.
And that's what you were doing at that moment.
Exactly. I'm hearing Erod, right? I'm hearing him saying that. I'm like, I stopped for a moment, and I'm like, that's me right now, this moment. And that was like that moment where I was like, I need to slow down, and I need to figure out how I could dedicate time for myself. And to me, it's not for everybody in the mornings, but I think for everybody, you do have to find time to work on yourself, because if not, man, I mean, a lot of things will go sideways, starting with your health and your mental health as well.
Yeah. One of the best things I ever did was hire a business coach. And I've always had mentors, and I believe in just people that have been there before. And not everybody, just because they've been there before or they have a bigger business than you, sometimes they want to give you very selfish advice because they don't want to see you succeed, right? So you have to be careful who you associate with. But when you find the right ones or the good ones, that plus books. I mean, what we've built, we're not the first ones. There are, Chris Colson, he's here in the audience. He always says, success leaves clues, right? So let's go out and find the resources to make ourselves better and help us work on a business.
Definitely. I mean, whatever we're going through in life, guaranteeing somebody else went through it and they wrote about it. So I'm a big believer in that as well. Like you said, Chris Colson, success leaves clues.
You heard it here first. J-Rod's coming out with a book soon, so he can leave a bunch of clues.
True story. How'd you know?
We're looking forward to that. All right, Carlos, I want to ask you the first part of that question, which is you have several different businesses, right? How do you sort of handle or control the messaging around what you do? Because if I say, what do you do? You're going to tell me about all 5 businesses, like what is your message as a company? Because you guys have so many different avenues.
Well, it depends on who I'm talking to. It depends on what their needs are. And that's how I relate to which business would affect them. It depends on, if I see someone who's talking about, mostly I talk about insurance now. And if I'm talking to a doctor, I'm going to talk to him about my medical billing company. And if talking to someone who's thinking about doing real estate, I talk about my real estate business. So it depends on who I'm talking to. If they ask me, I talk, I'm an entrepreneur and I have different businesses, and I explain what I do.
Gotcha. So when, I used the phrase earlier, a confused mind does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially you're like, consider the audience and then let me deliver the message to that specific audience, whoever I'm in front of.
Exactly. And it's what I do is I have the people that are supporting me, that it's not confusing for me because I delegate. And that's the key. And my businesses started growing when I started delegating and hiring more people, because you can't do it all. But if you have procedures in line and you lead by example, because every job that I've ever done in any other business, I did first. And then once I learned and had those procedures or what I wanted to accomplish, then I pass it down to someone else. And a lot of times they would think of, well, why don't we do it this way? And I always had that mindset of, if it could be done better and you recommend that, let's do it, as long as it doesn't impede in the growth of the company or in the procedure that we're doing. So I'm a big believer in hiring the right people and making sure that they have this right goal in mind and everyone's working together. I don't micromanage anyone, but I make sure that the foundation is there.
First of all, I can talk about delegation all day, right? But there is too much delegation, which can be called abdication. Right? Hiring someone and saying, just go take care of this, go figure it out. What is your style? Do you hire someone and, like you said, you'll listen to their input and their feedback and their ideas, but in terms of the day-to-day, are you just hiring someone and saying, here's exactly what you need to do and how you do it? Or are you saying, figure it out? Or are you somewhere in the middle? Like what is your style? Because I've seen all over the map.
I'm somewhere in the middle. It depends on what business it is. If I'm doing the medical billing, I know about medical billing because in the courts, they designated me as an expert in medical billing and how much to charge for a certain procedure. So I know the procedures that are involved, but it's not something that I want to do medical billing all day long. But I understand the process and what it takes. I have people that have 20 years, 10 years, 15 years in medical billing. I'm not going to tell them how it's best to do a medical billing for them because they do it on a daily basis. I don't. I have the general knowledge of what needs to be done, and I listen to them and I give them input as to how I believe it is. And then I get input from them and see, okay, well, it should be done this way because of this reason. If it makes sense to me and it's working, I wouldn't change it. So you have to listen to both sides, and you can't micromanage someone, but you can't just, hey, figure it out, because then you don't know what they're doing. And you have to make sure that there are goals set for them to do certain projects and make sure that they hit those goals. If they don't, then you have to understand, well, is it something that they don't have enough direction, or is it something that they don't have enough resources in order to do that? Or if they need more help and it's just that one person can't do all the job, maybe they need someone else to help them with it to accomplish whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you for that. Do you consider your business more of a lifestyle business, or are you trying to grow it and potentially sell it?
Right now, I'm trying to. Eventually, that could be the ultimate goal. I mean, I'm a little bit older, so the ultimate goal is, and these businesses that I'm doing now is something that I can scale and later on sell. The other business were GIR, with Gables Insurance Recovery. It wasn't really something that could be sold because of all the different aspects of it. And there was companies that were trying to copy me and they couldn't do it. They had the attorneys, but they didn't have the person to testify in court for it. Or they didn't have, so it wasn't something that I could sell. But the medical billing, definitely, I get calls weekly basis wanting me to sell it.
Yeah.
And
you mind if I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
I believe, just sort of reading between the lines there, I want you to expand on this, but since the business was so tied to you, if you Gables Insurance Recovery, if you sell the business, you have the relationships. You either have to work there or you're gone and it falls apart, right?
Right.
So just expand on that. Like if the business is too tied to the owner, then it's not going to be very easy to sell.
I had what I did was I recruited people from insurance companies that did exactly the same thing that I did, and that's allowed me to expand. So I had people that could testify as well, that testified very well, and they were doing that. But the reason it couldn't be sold is because of the fact that the law changed and it kept on changing. It also was difficult to have someone that had the license in order to do that, and then had the attorneys as well. So it's a combination of those two things and the knowledge of not only the legal aspects, but the medical side as well. So it was difficult to find someone to sell this to that had all those different things. And I did the testifying. I knew and so did the people that were doing the same thing as I was. But that combination and the combination of my partner, Robert Pellier, who was able to very successfully win in court, it was a hard combination to have someone that could have an attorney that could prevail in court, as well as have someone else that would testify, because the company that tried to copy me were all attorneys, but they didn't have anyone to testify. So it was that combination that made it difficult for me to go ahead and sell that business.
Let's talk
about it. Was also difficult. I wish I had a subscription because
Yeah.
there's no way of having a subscription because there was one case that would last. Maybe I filed a lawsuit and a couple of months later it settled. I had one case that lasted 14 years before it actually went to trial. So there's no way to predict the expenses and everything else that were involved with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about next, right? Which is your business model. So I'll draw a parallel between a personal injury law firm, because I think most people understand the way somebody gets injured, right? You hire an attorney. That attorney's not getting paid unless they recover for you, the injured person, and then the firm is keeping a percentage of that. So talk about a non-recurring revenue business. I mean, you're trying to map out based on a calculation between how many cases you have, average value, plus the average length of time it takes to collect. And it sounds like you guys are in a very similar boat, which is essentially, here's the value we think of our claims, but here's how long it's going to take to collect. And then how do we not run out of cash before we get there?
Exactly. And I was doing it for a number of years. I did it almost for 19, 20 years. So I knew that sending the letter, I was going to get 20% that are going to settle and pay me. Then I had another 20 to 30% that I filed a lawsuit and they would settle. And then there was another percentage that was going to go all the way to trial, and trial could last. And I had cases that won in trial and they appealed. So it was another 5 years or whatever, 2 or 3 years. So I had to have enough volume so that the first half of the ones that settled the letter and then at filing a lawsuit, I had to have enough volume to pay for the ones that lasted a long time. And the ones that last the longer it takes, the more revenue I was going to make. So I had to balance each one of those to make sure that I had enough revenue to last.
Yeah.
So that's why I now the businesses that I have are complementary to each other because I sell a house and I do the closing. Those two are together at that point. But then I have the recurring every year with the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance that is every year keeps me in touch with the person that I sold the house to. And the statistics are 5 to 7 years, they're going to sell it again. So I keep in touch with the same person throughout those 7 years. And I keep on reminding me, well, if it's time to sell or you know someone else that sells, that wants to sell their home, then I can help them with it. Not only the closing and selling the house, but I can do the insurance for them.
Yeah, that sounds like, well, like Jonathan, you layered on complementary services so that you could add to, you know, the main business and go from there.
And the one that's similar to the recurring is the medical billing, because most doctors have a number of patients that they see. So I know I can predict how much they're gonna how many patients and how much revenue is. And I know what my percentage is. So I know at this month, well, this is how much I'm going to make for each one of my clients.
Yeah. Which reminds me, I'm going to come to you now, Emilio, but of a quote that another one I heard a long time ago that was really, I still remember where I was sitting when I heard a mentor say this, right? He said, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. And I'm thinking to myself, all I've ever heard people talk about for the past X amount of years is their revenue. But if you're spending 100% of what you bring in, then who cares, right? And it comes back to the smile on your face when you're like, I don't care about the business. I care about the model, because you had the built-in profit margin, which allowed you sanity, allowed you to sleep at night and to have a very comfortable demeanor anytime you're doing business, because, you know, you're a happy guy and it fit in with your lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this whole set it and forget it, it's a highly profitable model because you spend a little bit of money up front to service, to get quotes, to go see most of the time element there isn't a hard cost to do, you know, to get a client. It's mostly, you know, labor of actually doing the work. But once you do, then there's really not much for you to do. So I would almost say, Jesus, 80, 90% margin. I mean, like the margin was I didn't have a big business. And I think what caught the attention of the people looking at the business was their vision of scaling it, meaning that I didn't have the energy or the winning. I never scaled it. I just let it, I just build it, grinding it, if you will. But they saw the ability to take what was there and scale it and then put whatever I had built into a sort of a steroid level, but because they saw the margin.
Yeah.
Because the margin was strong.
Look, my amendment to that quote would be cash flow is king. Like for me, if you're sitting on a pile of cash, that has a runway on it.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have a certain amount coming in predictable every month, that allows you to not only know exactly what your profit's going to be, but to plan growth, because you can say, all right, out of this $30,000 that I'm going to potentially take home, right? As you said, it was a lifestyle business. So you were like, where am I going this month? You could have also taken half that and said, I'm going to drive that back into growth, into scaling this company, but not in a way that's risky or unprofitable, for example.
Yeah.
Like, what was your decision making around that? Like, how much do I put back in the business and how much do I just say, like, this is exactly what I need?
That's a great question. I never looked at it that way. We would just, I would just go to events, meet people. They had a need. We'd solution it. We'd install it. We were there for them. Really, the big decision on whether I should spend or not spend were two areas: marketing or adding another salesperson. I was never able to find commission only salespeople. And shit, I tried. I mean, I could not find them. So God, you
weren't selling $200,000 renovation projects either, right? I mean, again, that matters for the most.
Correct. So, and I think the difficulty about scaling was that anything that had a technology label on it immediately created the impression that it was $100,000 base salary. So anybody that knew a little bit about the industry could go work directly for AT&T, not for me that had a little warehouse by the falls, and make $125,000 plus commission, plus health insurance, and all the things that I couldn't give. So I bumped against that. That would have, in my opinion, was my Achilles heel. Is I could not hire people to scale. And I wasn't willing. But most people say, I also have a peer group, which anybody who's in this room, Gentleman Journal is phenomenal, but you're not going to find people that do the same thing you do, probably in Gentleman Journal. That's more brotherhood. That's more like things that are, I don't want to say outside the business, but they're not unique to your business. But a peer group that is within your peer group, within your industry, is brutal. So it's incredibly, that's how actually we got the private equity folks to come chat. But where I'm getting,
tell us what were you in? What were you in a mastermind for?
It was a it was a mastermind for telecom. It's not, nobody would know it. I don't even think we had a name, quite frankly. A gentleman called Bill Powers put it together, and it was 10 of us who had a similar business: Orlando, Atlanta, Denver, Dallas, different markets. So we would share. We would share financials. We would share everything. And these guys are, no, I just hired a person. I'm paying him $100,000, and it's going to take them 16 months to ramp up. And I'm thinking to myself, that makes absolutely no logical sense to me. So yeah, I could have invested, but I had a hard time finding where, because I couldn't find the people.
Now, did the other members of your mastermind have the same challenge with finding salespeople?
They did.
Okay.
They did. And quite frankly, let's say there were 10 instances where they actually hired somebody and brought them on board. The success rate was maybe 20%.
Yeah.
Like maybe 20%. And yet they've gone through easily $1 million, $2 million worth of run salary that produced nothing.
Let's ask the crowd real quick. This is a GJ podcast first. We're going to ask the crowd, by show of hands, who has hired a salesperson that didn't work out? Yeah, it's more than half the room, right?
It was tough.
Yeah.
So, where I found let's call it my leverage to grow, was I would have sub agents. So somebody who was doing computers and IT services, which we didn't do, invariably the customer says, I really need new phones, or man, my internet sucks. Or he says, listen, I don't know, but the reason you're calling me because your computer doesn't work, it has nothing to do with your computer. That's the fact that you're using DSL. You're not in 1980 here. So I got a guy for you. And so we became the guy. I got a guy for you. That was our sort of our thing. So even though we couldn't find salespeople, we were very successful in creating a referral partner base, which is what you were alluding to, using installers to bring you business and et cetera. So that ended up, that's kind of a little bit how the code was cracked. Is let's forget about hiring salespeople. Let's go find people who invariably are trusted advisors within the companies who are asked or realize we need to bring in Emilio and Rafa because stuff is not working in here. Yeah. And we would pay them. I mean, we would pay them a residual. As long as those customers were paying, I get my cut, and there were checks that would go out to those folks. So there's always a way within your business to sort of crack the code.
Yeah. And it took the mastermind to figure that out, right? That was the benefit.
I'm telling you, the mastermind is probably, other than GJ, probably the most, I mean, even BNI, nothing against it, but for me, it was never life-changing. For me.
BNI.
It was never life-changing. Yeah. Other than I met Chris, brought me into this group, that's been life-changing, right? But other than that, it wasn't a financial life-changing. The peer group, I say that would be, and there are people that do what you do. Hugh, I'm sure there are people that are in the PEO business who are all over the country that do the same thing you do and having potentially the same challenges that you're going through. And you meet on the phone, once a month, and then you do, twice a year, we have, hands on. And I would walk back with like kernels of, just goals from a lot of these meetings.
Yeah.
So
Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, which other than Miracle Morning is probably one of the 2 or 3 that really helped change my life many years ago. He says, no man has achieved great wealth or power without the benefit of a mastermind.
Yep.
And we talk about the mastermind concept in Gentleman's Journal because it is absolutely a factor. We've seen one of my businesses sprung up from Gentleman's Journal. Without GJ, I wouldn't have a second business, for example, right? And I can look around the room and there's examples and more things happen. That is one type of mastermind. And what we have is the ability to be vulnerable, to open up, to share. But the type of mastermind you're talking about, very narrow, right? Not even industry, but a specific type within the industry that's very similar to yours, that's in a different region. So you're not giving away all your secrets, necessarily. And you just go a centimeter wide and a mile deep, and you just dig and learn. And,
the whole concept of even the possibilities, like I was the smallest of the 10 from a revenue standpoint, but I didn't have all the overhead that the other guys had.
Right.
So I was probably one of the most profitable.
Sure.
And a light bulb went on and said, okay, are PE firms looking for revenue? Like you said, revenue is at ego. I think you made that comment. Profit is, I don't know, what was the other term they used?
Sanity.
Point is sanity. But it opened my eyes to say, I don't have to feel uncomfortable because I'm the smallest in the group, because I have something that they don't have. And that is margin. And ultimately, even though I think out of the 10, 4 have transacted, my valuation was not that far away from the guy who had 8 employees.
Right.
Remember, because guys, you sell a business at a multiple, but that multiple then gets discounted, by your overhead. And your overhead, if you've got 2 employees or you got 10 employees, that's straight off of your EBITDA. And that EBITDA is your multiple. So, listen, this podcast probably not long enough to get into, but if any of you guys or anybody knows, this whole EBITDA thing is like, for me, was like a holy shit moment. Because it isn't whether you're doing 10 million or 20 million, is how much is going how much is staying in the kitty. So, I mean, that whole due diligence process for me was earth shattering and very interesting.
I bet it was.
And if anybody hasn't gone through it, my God, the education there was crazy.
Yeah. The point here is if you're getting a multiple on profit, a buyer is going to ask, how long is it going to take me to make this money back? Right. So if somebody has a $10 million revenue business and they're spending 95% of it, right? So 500,000 is basically what they're keeping at the end of the day. Then if somebody buys that for $10 million, that's going to heck of a long time making money back. You're never going to get that type of money. But if somebody has a $5 million business and they're keeping 2, they're gonna sell for a lot more than the first scenario.
And remember, for them, most of the time they're buying you because they're buying 10 of you, right? They do what they call a roll up, and then they end up. The expectation is that rolled up company, what they call the platform company that's been buying little guys, rolls into a much bigger multiple. So if they pay you a 7x, the idea is that because now you have more scale and you have a platform that could turn into 16x. But that X is based on profit.
Yeah.
Versus, versus the top line.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
All right. Welcome back. So what we're going to do now is rapid fire questions. Another GJ podcast first, because why not, right? Make things up as we go and have a good time. Had a really good panel so far today. A lot of good business lessons. And I thought there would be some really good questions from the audience. And there was. So what we're going to do is I got 4 questions and I'm going to have the guys come up. You're going to stand right next to Carlos. I'm going to hand you the mic and you're going to ask your questions. I think it'll come across a little more genuine that way and it'll be fun, right? Carlos, I know you want to ask a question? No. Guy hates microphones worse than he hates cameras. So, all right. Our first question is our resident architects from GJ Miami, Stuart Dabowski. That's you. Come up and let's ask you.
All right.
Hold on. Let's make sure. Yeah, there we go.
Hi, Mom.
All right. Let's go ahead and look in that.
So my question is this. I'm a business owner like you guys. Recently, I made a bad decision and I'm working my way out of that bad decision. So my question for you guys is, can you recall a time in your business where you screwed up? Where you could have gone left and you went right. Something that you had control over as the business owner, you made a bad decision, and you're kind of stuck working your way through that, working your way out of that. Love to hear your insight on that.
Whoever feels compelled to share first. So
the one thing that was a bad decision is keeping a toxic employee longer than I should have. I should have fired them a lot sooner. And once I made the decision because you try to keep that person, okay, I hired them, I can fix them. And the worst decision was to keep him longer than I should have. And once I did fire him, I had a lot of employees come up to me and I was saying, well, that's going to be bad for morale. And they were thanking me, what took you so long? So that's one of the things that was a bad decision on my part, is that when I realized that it was a bad employee that was bringing everyone down, it was a toxic, always complaining and everything else. They were very good at what they were doing, but it was toxic with all the other employees. That's probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, they say hire slow, fire fast, but 99% of us do the opposite, right? We hire real fast because we need it. Like, oh crap, we're behind, and then it takes us forever to get rid of somebody who we know in our gut we should.
Exactly.
Anyone else had that experience? You let someone go that you're terrified of, and then everyone else is like, "What took you so long?"
Oh yeah,
a lot of hands just went up in the audience. Okay,
go again if you want to go. Yeah, so you say hire slow, fire fast. I believe you got to hire fast and fire faster. For my business, it's been since I was a kid. I was 21 years old, and I did it with my friends and my family. And they would always tell me, "Man, what you're doing is not the right way. Family and business is a mix." And I'm a hard-headed kid that I said, "You know what? I'm going to prove y'all wrong." And so far, we've done that. I've got guys that have been with me that I've known since I was 5 years old. But that created a culture where my doors open to all types of employees. So my one of my mistakes that I could tell you is not having that barrier, that kind of just that wall where like business is business versus like, you know what, you're at ASP and I treat you like family already and as a friend, which is still good. I think it's still a big part of it. But that was, because of that, I would say the past couple of years, I've had my bad employees, my bad situations where I thought someone was more of a friend than they turned out to be. But as far as like mistakes, Stuart, I think as an entrepreneur, we're always making mistakes. We're always rolling the dice. We're always taking risks. And I'm a big believer, it's not mistakes as long as we learn from them. So that's what I can, share with you, Stuart.
Stuart, I would say I don't recall a catastrophic mistake that I needed to dig myself in, but I will tell you that I had, the thing of 1,000 cuts, you die from 1,000 cuts.
Paper cuts, yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was, there was always decisions. So it's almost like, you get off track. And I think the biggest, to articulate the point is stay within my lane. Rafael came from the copper business, Common Minolta. Maybe I should get into the copper business. Bad idea, right? IT guys, IT guys are making a fortune. If I already have their telecom, a terrible idea because that's your revenue. That's a revenue stream that you've been snipping. So it really was a combination of not a major catastrophic, or I had to dig myself out, but just continuous redirecting to stay at the core of what we know, of what we knew, and I think we did well, versus trying to find too much, being too broad. So maybe not a decision, but maybe just something that constantly had to be reminded that the grass is not greener with the guy that's doing copiers. He's got his own problems. I don't need those problems. It's not that profitable.
Yeah. I know not on the panel, Stuart, but my favorite Dabowski said, right, which is your late father, because you said this in a GJ meeting a long time ago, a problem is something you can't throw money at, right? A real problem. I remember you saying that. You told us your dad made that comment. I've never forgotten that. And I think about that a lot. So thank you for the question. And we're going to go on to our next one from our PEO expert, Mr. Hugh Quinn. Hugh, come up, grab the mic, please, from Carlos, and go ahead and look over there at Neto and ask your question.
Yeah. So I was actually, this question's, for anybody really, but directly really more towards Emilio. We have such similar businesses, except for the fact we sell completely different products in different industry. But everything you say, I'm just sitting there, it's like everything I've gone through, from the upside of subscription to salespeople and then referral sources that you bring in business through. It's just like everything is just so identical. I've had people, come to me in recent years and months, saying, hey, do you want to buy another brokerage? And I personally, I have such a close grip on my clients and know them so well. I feel like other brokers probably do not to say that I'm the only one that has a good grip on their clients, but I think it's easy not to have such a good grip. I mean, we really, really focus on it. And so I've passed a lot of times because I'm thinking to myself, you buy into this revenue stream, whatever you think is the cash flow, and then you get in there, it's not what you think, and then people are disappearing, et cetera, et cetera. And then I continue to think about it more, and I think about how an earnout period can protect you over that. And I wanted to ask, I don't even know if you're allowed to disclose this because you're probably still in an earnout period, but so you could either, tell us, or tell me, what is your earnout period? I'm curious how they approached you about it, how they protected themselves when they bought your company. And if that's not comfortable, if you have a non-disclosure, maybe speak in generalities about what you kind of saw out there and in terms of what the earnout period is and how you felt they were being protected when they bought you. Because you can do a lot of due diligence, but you don't know until you really get in there. So that's my question to you.
All the details, sir. We want to know it all.
There's nothing in your question that is NDA or nothing. That I'll tell you, I did not accept an earnout. I told them you could. I gave them my QuickBooks username and password for 1 week, and I told their exterior accounting, whatever the group they use. I said, here, go through everything. I'm not going to hold back. Run every report you want. That's the business. That's what you're buying. but I'm not going to take an earnout. Now, there was a holdback. That's different. A holdback is for 12 months. They wanted 24. I said, no, 12 months. 12 months is if you misrepresented something, okay, then the holdback is for them to recover. So it was more like, boy, you told me that you had all this in receivables, but you don't. Or you told me that this customer has, 3 years left on a contract, and when I checked, it's only 12. So those were things, that's a holdback. And they gave us our money back in a year. The problem with earnouts, and this is, I learned this from one of my peer buddies. Problem with the moment you turn the car to them, you give them the car keys, you no longer drive the car. You no longer have the ability to make decisions. But yet your earnout is based on how the business performs over a period of time where you no longer have control over how you're going to take care of a customer, whether they're not going to allow you to go visit customers anymore because it's wasting too much gas and that's not in their budget, right? So earnouts, again, you can't always get away with it, but I would say that is one of the caveats and you're an attorney.
Yeah. Earnouts are great for litigation attorneys because it provides the most
it's
amount
awesome
of
for them,
opportunity.
but
right?
It does nothing for you.
It's where most of the disputes come after the acquisition is on the earnout.
Now, I mean, to peer off, an earnout is almost like an equity rollover. An equity rollover is where you sold the business for X, you get 80% or 90% now, and you leave 20 or 10% in the company who purchased you for the eventual possibilities that they may go to a Berkshire Hathaway and get another bite of the apple is usually used in the industry, right? And so that's it. But an earnout, the problem with an earnout is that you lose control the moment that check clears. And even if they tell you, no, you're still going to run it for a year, that my experience has been with other friends who've done it. They've gotten a lot less money in that earnout amount than what they thought they were going to get because they'll find shit.
That happens 10 times out of 10. So did you give a big discount for?
No,
as a
matter of fact,
basically put your foot down and said, no, we're not.
There's some discount to not giving them that. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what my other friends' multiples were, right? Because I don't know. I mean, they're friends. I didn't. Hey, John, what was your multiple? What was your X?
I said you guys talked about everything in the
we did, but there was a couple carve outs of the we share everything, and one was how much commissions you were getting from AT&T, because that will create NDA violations between you and AT&T if you're telling other people, and that was the other one. So, okay, in my case, they spent about a month sort of reviewing things before they made their offer. When they made their offer, it was really a letter of intent, an LOI. This is what it is worth. And then you accept it or not. Then they go into the real colonoscopy. That's like that's like painful to the point where I was ready to blow it off. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. Then, so they never discounted the LOI amount from the
what was their initial
price.
Ask on the earnout?
Sorry?
Their initial ask on the earnout.
You know what? I don't remember. It was such a first meeting. This is what I'm willing to talk about. This is what I'm not. I don't even remember even talking about an earnout, to be completely honest. Now they wanted 24 months on the holdback. I got it down to 12. And then there's this is 6-year like fraud thing, and you're an attorney. I don't know what the term was. That's still hanging, but that's if you like maliciously, fraudulently represented something, which my wife ran the books. The books were so clean. That's the other thing, guys. Run clean books. And if they're not clean, make sure that you know what's not clean so that when you talk to them, you say meals and entertainment. Okay, I'll leave it at that. So it was in a way where we could carve out, and we actually reverse engineered the deal where they got so into it. I said, listen, why don't we do this differently? You have sales, you have Rafa, you have insurance, and you have Brett. That's what you're buying. You're not buying my heat tickets. You're not buying my meals and you're not buying my travel. You're buying those things. We actually reverse engineered the business. If that makes any sense,
does.
if
No, it
not,
does.
we can talk offline.
Yeah.
But we had to but the books were, there was no ambiguity once you knew what fell in what box. And we just removed the boxes that didn't belong, kind of a thing.
A lot to unpack there. Thank you, Hugh. Great
Sorry.
question. And there's a whole 2 hours we could spend on exits, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, 2 more. Mr. Ridley. John Ridley's going to come up and ask a very poignant question.
Yeah. Well, hey guys. Oh, there we go. Great podcast, great host. Thanks, Brett. So, Brett, you talked earlier about to become a better professional, you got to take care of yourself first. So, growth as a person translates into growth as a leader. This is kind of for Jonathan, but I'd love to hear all three of you guys. When we left the GJ retreat last month, you took a flight to Las Vegas for personal growth. You and I had lunch a couple years ago. You were going to John Maxwell in Orlando, I think it was, for growth, leadership to your teams, coaching, mentoring. Everyone knows you, knows you're successful. At this stage of your game, why do you still have that hunger to keep elevating yourself first?
Thank you, John. I appreciate the question. To me, I believe I'm a strong believer that God put us here to be a person of servanthood, person to serve others. So me to tell myself I've made it, I've learned what I needed to learn. To me, that's just selfish, right? So it's all about giving back to the community, giving back to my staff, our customers. And the more that I can learn, the more that I could actually do something that could be significant, not just about being successful.
I'm going to chime in there real quick. One of the guys who's a mentor, and I've seen him be very successful in business, he talked about how much money he spent on himself in order to continue to have the mindset to keep growing the business because it's so easy to backslide. All right. And the way he described it was like, I had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on my own coaching, my own personal development, because I would find myself saying, I really want to do this thing, but I can't because I don't have the money. And then he had to stop and say, but I have a business where I can create more value and find the money. And it wasn't about that one thing. It was about the mindset behind the one thing where and again, I'm not saying that you're not successful in business unless you have a certain size of business, right? You can have a lifestyle, you can be happy and all those things. But if the people I've seen continue to grow, spend the most money and the most time on themselves personally. And I think it's a great question, John, because I agree. It seems like J-Rod just keeps investing in himself and he's got so many more cool things he wants to do. And I think that's what it takes.
Definitely. Great question, John. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Last question we had. Julian Casal. Come up, Julian, and ask your question.
Oh, jeez. So, Carlos. Hey, guys. Great podcast. My question is specifically for Emilio. Life after the exit. Were you ready? Do you know what's next? Are you still thinking about it? Are you enjoying it? Anything you do differently?
Another 2 hours. We got 4 more hours here.
That's loaded. That's loaded. Yeah, I miss the grind a little bit. I don't say I miss the uncertainty because there was not a whole lot of uncertainty once you got the business to a certain level. But I was talking with Carlos a while ago. I find myself reading a lot more complicated books to keep, to keep thinking, okay, what is next? And obviously AI, but if I was younger, I would not have sold. I think there was a perfect storm of the number was right. I was 63 then. I knew there was going to be a lot of changes in the industry. Like, let's be real. Now, if somebody needs what we used to do, they can probably just go on ChatGPT and say, this is my address. I got 10 employees. I'm really struggling with this. And what should I do? And where should I go? And ChatGPT or whatever you use will tell you mostly what Rafael and I probably were telling you to do, right? So I knew there was going to be that. And quite frankly, I didn't feel like I wanted to be pressured to learn a whole industry at this stage in my life. Like that, people say, oh, AI is like transformative. And if you're either going to be a disruptor, or you're going to be disrupted. And the AI is huge. So it was a perfect storm. If I was 10, 15 years younger, the money would have had to have been a lot more for me to figure out my next stage in my life. But so you know me. I mean, my son has a business. I'm always talking to him about his business. I'm always available with Stuart and we grab lunch every once in a while. And so, just go to the gym, work out, try to lose some weight, get healthy, call Julian Casal every couple months, keep him on the phone for 2 hours, that kind of shit. But yeah, listen, I've looked at so many different things, and we went out to see your houses and shit like that. Didn't do shit, right? My point is that now I'm like afraid to like get into something that's going to complicate my life. So I'm at the non-complicated stage in my life, but I miss the grind a little bit. Do I miss the trade show? Maybe sometimes I do, because there's a lot of people there that you meet over the years. But what's life after selling? It depends. You got guys like Ivan from Primo. He had an exit, and he's got different things going on all over the place. I'm not sure that I'm that person, but for some people, that works. So, Julian, travel, baby, travel.
Yeah, and Julian, you probably know this in your line of work as an estate planning attorney, one of the finest in all of Florida.
Mine.
But yeah, of course. There's a new group called Post-Exit Founders that's starting because it's a whole unique set of issues that people who have an exit have to face, right? Uncertainty, sometimes depression, what's next, what's my identity? I have a set amount of money now instead of recurring, cash coming in and a whole thing. So I think that's a good podcast for another day, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julian, for the question. All right. As we're rounding home, what I want to do is put you guys on the spot. Again, whoever's compelled to go first, we're going to end with a business lesson, a story, anything you've maybe you've heard another panelist talk about and you reminded you of something you wanted to share. So could be completely off topic from what we've already discussed, but a business nugget per se, to leave the guys in the room and our podcast listeners with. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not looking at anyone.
At me.
So
We should have prepped for this one.
I know this one. I probably
did have a break,
I probably should have prepped you guys for this one. Look at the wheels. The wheels.
I just
Go ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
So know why you're doing it, right? Try to figure out what the end game is, because what you do every day in a business with end game A is a completely different set of things that you're going to do if your end result is not A but B. I would say that once you get past the survival, hey, then sit down, get a mentor, get a professional, and map out in 10 years. Let's just use that as a journey. In 10 years, where do I want to be, and then model the business to that end game. And your end game is going to be different than my end game. You're younger, you can have hopefully different, stage in your life. So that would be my thing. Don't just half-ass wake up in the morning and go to the office without knowing what the end game would look like to you. And that's it. That would be my takeaway.
Excellent. Thank you, Emilio. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I think I could piggyback off of that. I don't have something in my business right now in the vision board. But I can tell you is one, yes, for sure. You got to have a purpose behind it. You have to have joy and love behind what you do. If not, like, what are you doing it for? But once you get there and you really want to build something special, there's a book called The E-Myth about building a franchise prototype. So though I'm not, building with a vision of selling, I know I want to build a business that's sellable. So for that to take place, you really got to start thinking about systems and processes. You got to know your numbers, not just financially. You got to have we run on EOS. So that's from the book Traction. And everybody has a scorecard, right? And your employees, your staff, they're going to want to know, just like we want to know, what are they producing or not producing? And if they don't want a scorecard, then that's probably one of those people that we should want to let go of, unfortunately.
Fire faster.
There you go. Fire faster. So systems and processes is what I could, that nugget I would leave with you guys. If you really want to build something special and something that you can really know, and everybody in your organization know, if we're delivering or if we're not.
And for me is running a business and owning a business. There is so many aspects of the business. There's accounting, there's selling, there's managing people. And for me is delegating the portions of that business that you want. Like Emilio, my wife handles all the books, all the accounting. She knows all the different accounts and how I hate doing that. I like managing the business. I like selling. So delegate those aspects of the business that are necessary, but it's not necessarily what you want to do. And if you focus on what you want to do and what you enjoy doing, you'll be more successful, because those aspects that you don't want to do will run your business.
Awesome. Thank you. Before we end, a few shout outs and thank yous. First and foremost, behind the camera, you can't see him, is our very own Neto Almanza from Miami Video Works.
Yeah, Neto.
And maybe we'll include this in one of our Instagram reels, because the amount of people that are going to watch, all 120 minutes and get to the end, and we'll shout you out a little bit, Neto. But Video Works and Miami Video Works, and does a great job. Got lights, cameras, mics, the whole thing. This guy's a real deal. So if you have any AV needs, video needs, contact Neto. Another one is for Gentleman's Journal for hosting the podcast. Shout out to VJ. And lastly, thank you to the venue, El Vecino, the best. And I would say the highest quality, most exquisite. It's the best cigar bar in downtown Miami, right? You don't have TVs everywhere, bands playing, DJs. This is a refined area that you can have a conversation, have a great smoke, have some premium liquor, and really enjoy yourself. So check out El Vecino in downtown Miami. And for the third GJ podcast, that's a wrap. Thank you all.